Thanks for staying up later. This is the first of two with Jerry Lewis. We're glad to have you here. I called my buddy Gene Siskel, who is a fan of a good portion of your work, and I said, if you were talking with Jerry Lewis, what would you ask? So we jotted some of this down. He says, look, here's the number one question you ask this guy. Comic actor, filmmaker, guy who raises money for charity. On the face of it, this guy shouldn't be such a lightning rod for people's emotions. Why do you think people feel so strongly about you?
I don't know. I guess there are people who don't like you to press certain buttons, and there are people who enjoy the risk they think I take, and I think there are people who dislike the risk they think I take. And then the people that love you meet the people that don't like you, and you have a wonderful tennis match, and I'm the recipient of the benefits, because very rarely do the negatives win. The positives usually win.
Are you always convinced of that, though?
I feel pretty confident about it. I go on the air, and I hold 120 million viewing audience for 24 hours. I've raised $1.3 billion in 44 years. What do you want to say bad about that? Who am I hurting? I'm doing good work.
Interesting, though. Even the telethon, and for years and years, if there was some disagreement about your work or your public persona, people would say, the telethon. That not only tips the balance, it tips the balance from here to Timbuktu. But in recent years, even the telethon has caught some heat. Some muscular dystrophy sufferers saying...
There's 15 of them.
You think it's that much of a splinter group?
That's all it is. I serve 1,500,000 victims of neuromuscular disease, and those are the ones I have to concern myself with.
But for those who might not be familiar, the criticism was, and I believe there was an article in Parade magazine that was part of the focus of it.
That I wrote, yeah.
That
they didn't like the fact that I inferred they needed the help. Well, what else do they need? And the very ones that are so critical, the 15, are the ones that I bought wheelchairs for.
And they felt they were being depicted, and that this long-standing approach to the telethon, which might have been appropriate some time ago, has outlived its usefulness.
I really shouldn't give them this platform.
And they were being demeaned.
It's so unimportant.
But how much did that hurt you? After all, you're giving your life over to this.
Well, it's very painful. You know, I'm still having trouble with a cab driver that doesn't say hi when I pass a red light, you know. And any human being that says I'm not troubled by anyone that speaks negatively of me and my work is a liar. Of course you're troubled by it. But then, after you've been troubled, and you've gotten rid of that first nip, as it were, then I can sit down and realistically say to you, I got 1,500,000 people that are being helped by what I do. How can I allow 15 people to stop me or deter my forward motion?
If you had to pick a couple of moments on the telethon over the years and say these are the moments that mean the most to you, what would they be?
Mary Pasalacqua was a lady who received the last rites in a hospital in San Francisco. And we funded, she had myasthenia gravis, which is one of the neuromuscular diseases. And we funded the plasmapheresis treatment. She was given the last rites, and she wrote me a letter. She not only went into remission, but she recovered. And in the letter she said, I can't only thank you for what you did for me, but my dream now is to one day dance with Jerry Lewis. We get this letter. We sent for her. She came from San Francisco, dressed as beautifully as you've ever seen a lady in your life. And I introduced her after reading the letter to the audience, and she came out from stage left, and we danced together. It was pretty good.
I have never been the part or anywhere near seeing a dream come true. And that's heavy, but I'm going to see it come true for a lady now.
pretty good. And she lived another 12 years.
Nobody can deny how touching that is.
And how important
and how important it is, and the money that's raised. But the telethon as a bit of show business has taken hits for years and years. Think any of those hits are warranted?
The hits? Oh, sure. Remember,
too maudlin, too Vegas-y, too showbiz.
They have to find somewhere to knock you down. It's the same thing in your racket. There's a sportscaster that does local television in Cincinnati. He'd like to see you have a small accident. Why? Because you've done as well as you've done. It's that simple. The whole human condition is predicated on kind of an envy. Although there's an awful lot of people in this world, like myself, I happen to root for everybody. I'm a rooter. I feel good about hoping your show is a success. Mm-hmm. I'm a rooter for the new show on Broadway. I hope it's a winner. I'm a better person because of that. I've seen people that are so negative that they've got poisons in their system, and all of a sudden they've got ulcers. And all of a sudden they have heart attacks. I have no time for negativism. I am a very positive man, and I believe in the Yellow Brick Road. I think Cinderella was a wonderful story.
Almost said Cinderfella, didn't you?
Yes, right. I thought I was on the picture tour. And I think that an awful lot of the naysayers know that about me, and they hate it.
So even if you're not plagued by negativism, is it fair to say that at least for a good portion of your life, you had a certain chip on your shoulder which probably worked to your advantage? Probably gave you a little bit of an edge. You know, reading some of the stuff about you, I read of an incident as early as 15 years old, and a principal in your high school makes an anti-Semitic comment, and you haul up and belt the guy.
Knocked him through a bay window, half a story down, and broke 2 knuckles, and I was in vocational school the following Monday. I was expelled. But I lived
vocational school or Gleason's gym?
No, vocational school. Electrical maintenance and repair. That's how I finished my second year in high school. But I lived in Irvington, New Jersey, and it was the hotbed for the Nazi Bund. And they had meetings all over Irvington, New Jersey, all through 1940s, 39, 40. And this principal made it very clear that he thought they were terrific. And he made the statement a couple of times in auditoriums, but this day he said it to me to my face. I was in his office, and I straightened him right out. It was wonderful. I wish I could do it again.
Did you face a good deal of anti-Semitism during your career?
Oh, you see it. It's like a black man's pain. You see it, you deal with it, you pity them, and you get on with it.
I read where, when you played the Jerry Langford character in The King of Comedy, a really well-received role, that one of the ways that you and De Niro worked up the kind of animus that you need to make the scene work was that before the cameras rolled, he was throwing Jewish slurs at you.
Oh, yeah. He had me going pretty good. What I didn't know was he and Scorsese set me up. But what you don't know is that the cameras were rolling, even in the setup. So that some of what went back and forth, where he really tagged me, is in the picture.
Just minus the slurs.
Yeah, right. It was incredible. Incredible.
De Niro wouldn't even have dinner with you, right? Because he felt, well, you tell me why.
Well, Bobby said, we had worked for 4 months in New York in prepping the picture. And the interesting thing was that Bobby or Marty didn't understand what celebrity was, because Bobby De Niro has this wonderful anonymity because of the films that he had made. Nobody even knew who he was. Only of late do you know Bobby because of the magical films that he does. But I said, we should have dinner one night. He said, no. I don't want to socialize with you, and it's not good for the film if we do that, because I want to kill you, and I want to think about that. I said, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to working with you. You know, that's terrific. And Marty is nodding. I said, you're wonderful. Oh, look at this. How did I get into this three-way? But it worked. It was marvelous. After the picture was over, Bobby and I got together.
There's a scene in The King of Comedy where you're walking down the street as Jerry Langford, in effect the host of The Tonight Show, or a show like The Tonight Show, and a lady tries to get you to do something. She's on a payphone. And it's based on a real experience that you had in a nightclub, right?
Yeah. It happened at the Sands Hotel. I was standing outside the Copa room. I was doing a new kind of an opening, so I was coming from the audience to go on stage. Now, I followed the Step Brothers. They were on stage doing their last number. This lady comes over to me. I'll make it as brief as I can. She says, Jerry Lewis, I want you to know something. I go to church on a Sunday and I say novenas for you. You want to know the pleasure you've given my family all of these years? Not only my family, my children, my parents, my son, who's in the room with a very bad throat and a cold, would give his soul if he could ever touch your body. You're a God. The Red Sea had to be your work. That's what we think of Jerry Lewis, this family. I said, well, I'm so thrilled, thank you. I've never heard anything quite like that. But I hope you excuse me, but I'm hearing the music of the Step Brothers, and it's like their last 8 bars. I'm going to have to be in the room to make the entrance. She says, if you would, let me just grab this house phone. Look at it. It's 20 feet from here. Let me call the house phone. Get my son, Michael. If you just say hello to Michael on the phone, it would make his cold go away. I said, ma'am, the boys are going off the stage. I have to leave you right now. She said, I hope you get cancer. In one breath. And I went through the curtain and walked up on the stage and forgot my opening thing. It rocked me. I had never realized that it was that fragile, that they could turn that quickly. When I told Marty and De Niro about it, they said, did you make that up? I said, no, I'm telling you what happened. They said, we got to use it in the picture.
Morris, you will not believe who's coming down the hill. Jerry Langford, right?
Right.
Oh, Morris, please hold on. Jerry, would you please sign my order? Stop signing that magazine for me.
Yeah.
You're just wonderful. I've watched you your entire career. You're a joy to the world. Please, Morris, would you just please say something to my nephew Morris on the phone? He's in the hospital.
I'm sorry, I'm late.
You should only get cancer. I hope you get cancer.
I said, we'll use it in the picture. I said, but you're never going to get it as dramatic as it was that night because I stood on the stage and forgot my damn opening remarks. That's how it shook me. But it was true.
You can't top the Copper Top.
When you're smiling, when you're smiling, when you're smiling, when you're smiling, and the whole world smiles with you. And when you're laughing, oh, you're laughing, when the sun comes shining through. When you're crying, you bring on the rain. Stop your sighing, won't you be happy again? When you're smiling, keep on smiling, and the whole world smiles with you. Let's go now.
I guess you've answered this earlier when you talk about how you have to understand that you can't please everybody. But does it irk you at all that there is this notion out there that it's a couple of guys with cassettes of Martin and Lewis or movies from the 50s and a bunch of guys in France, and that's who Jerry Lewis's constituency is?
Who do you talk to, Bob?
It's just a notion that's sort of out there.
It's not out there at all. The American public have been very kind to me and very supportive up through last night. They've never, ever not been there for me. And it's an incredible kind of a career I've had. This is my 62nd year of performing. They've always been there, right from the beginning. Well, how are you not going to be there for a kid 5 years old in a tuxedo that didn't fit? But it's been there. They've always been there.
What were you doing at age 5?
I sang, Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And I was a big hit, my father tells me. But I got the best laugh because my foot slipped and I busted 2 bulbs in the footlights. And the laugh that came from that audience I liked better than the applause from the song. And that's what I knew I was going to do. But all through the years, the audiences have always been there. See, the misnomer is that the American audience don't think the same of Jerry Lewis that the French audience does. That's not, has nothing to do with that. It's the critical acclaim. See, in France, the critics think it's the coming of Christ when I go into France.
Jean-Luc Godard actually quoted as saying that you were better than Chaplin or Keaton, and the most progressive American filmmaker in the 50s and 60s.
The last part feels very comfortable for me. I can't deal with the first part. But Jean-Luc is very, very passionate about talent and those that he cares about. But the French audience and the French critics have always appreciated what I do based on the fact that they love cinema. The American audience has always been there for me. The grosses have been as big in America as they have anywhere else. But the critical acclaim is something else. The critics in the United States think that what I do is Larry, Curly, and Moe. It's slapstick. It's lowbrow. I like the way Time magazine wrote, in King of Comedy, Jerry Lewis finally shows a dramatic side. I've been showing that dramatic side for 62 years, but the critic isn't wise enough to know you have to be a damn good actor to make a schmuck of yourself. To play the fool and the clown, you have to be a hell of an actor. Now, when people talk about the greatest actors that ever lived, they name Sir Laurence Olivier. They'll name John Gielgud, Alec Guinness. They forget Jackie Gleason. They forget Milton Berle. And they forget Stan and Ollie, the finest actors that ever lived. But all you think of when you think of Stan and Ollie is the piano going up the steps.
Mm-hmm.
They were brilliant actors. You know what it takes to make you laugh at that kind of nonsense? You have to dig much, much further. Sir Lawrence and I were very good friends in the last couple of years of his life. He said he would give his soul to take a pratfall. In my suite at the Dorchester Hotel in London is Michael Caine, Peter Sellers, Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford, myself, and Sir Lawrence, and he's taking pratfalls in the middle of the living room.
Was he good at it?
No. No. I said, do Marathon Man again, you haven't got a prayer. He would have given his soul. He knew he was wrong. He knew whenever he would, and we had a nice thick rug, thank God. He couldn't time it. Yet, he was the finest dramatic actor that ever lived. Wanted to do that. Couldn't. So what I'm saying is, we can take any good comic that you really enjoy that comes from here. I'm not talking about cerebral combat. I'm talking about when the comic is a funny man from in the gut. He'll play anything you put before him. Take the finest actor on Broadway, and he's not about to begin to do what some of the comic people do.
Watch Volunteer 12 on First News at 5:30 because 12 News cares about you.
You were one of the first guys, comedic guys, before Woody Allen did it, before Mel Brooks did it, writing, directing, producing, appearing in
And I
your
also
own stuff.
operated on my own tonsils.
It's a remarkable thing.
Yes. Go on, Bob.
Physically as well as medically.
Yes.
Contortionist move.
Yes.
But in any case, you write this book, I guess in the early 60s, The Total Filmmaker, detailing some of the techniques that you used. Scorsese, at least until recently, when he would teach film classes, used this as one of the texts.
Right.
So he's a fan of your work.
Oh, tremendous fan. So was Bobby.
Woody Allen quoted as saying, "You were one of the most original talents that American comedy has produced."
Are you unhappy about that?
No, no.
Well, smile when you say it.
I'm detailing. I'm leading up to the big question here. I'm leading up to the big question. When you show up at Comic Relief some years ago, you get a standing ovation, prompted by the admiration of these young, supposedly hipper comics of a later era. So what I'm trying to delineate here is that this notion that Jerry Lewis was popular in the United States in the 50s, and now he's a big deal in France, and nobody else approves of his work, that isn't true.
Not at all.
There's a tremendous group of fans, including very knowledgeable observers of the craft, who are big on Jerry Lewis.
You should have seen the audience last night at Westbury. You should have been there.
What kind of show are you doing there?
What I do when I perform.
So it's your Vegas show, or?
No, I didn't say that. Did I say Vegas? Are you going to pay attention, you little cocker? I didn't say Vegas. No, I do just about everything I know how to do, and I perform and entertain the people. My training from my dad comes back from, oh my God, so many years ago. But before I walk on the stage, I always remember the one line he gave me. If you want to really be a pro, you have to sweat. Well, not until I sweat will I leave the stage. Sometimes it takes 78 minutes, 80 minutes. But for me to do everything that I do, it runs about 76, 78, 80 minutes. And I'm sweating pretty good by the time I leave.
So what happens, though, if you work like El Paso in the summer and you break a sweat 5 minutes in? Do the people get their money's
Good night,
worth?
folks. I never thought of that.
You know,
That's
a humid
funny.
day, these people get shafted.
Break a
I laid out
sweat.
good money for the tickets.
That's funny. Folks, I'm sweating. I have to leave. Good night.
Celebrate independence.
Tomorrow night, the adventures of Martin and Lewis. Some closing comments before we turn out the lights?
How close can that camera get?
There's Danielle.
That's Danielle. That's my daughter. That's a magical baby. She was sent right from God's quarters to me. You never saw anything like it in your life. She's 14 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days old. She has a vocabulary of 60 words. She walks. We called her the Destroyer now.
Wait a minute, she's 14 months old and she's speaking in complete sentences?
No, I didn't say that. She has 60-word vocabulary.
Oh.
That's pretty good for 14 months old. But nothing's connected yet. She's incredible. I've never been so smitten in my life, and I don't do anything anymore without letting people know she's here.
That done, will you do a second show tomorrow night?
Yes.
We talk about Martin and Lewis then. Until then, see you later.
Sunday, NBC.
You always use a driver.
I use the niblick myself. You just hit the tree.
Planted them farther away.
Why don't we move? Forget it.
Thanks for staying up later. This is night 2 with Jerry Lewis. As promised, we'll open this program with a discussion of the days of the Martin and Lewis partnership. I read that your understanding of the physical relationship and how it would work best with Dean Martin came from an organ grinder and a monkey.
Yeah. Yeah. I also, that was a picture in my mind. That was a picture in my mind.
He's the organ grinder, you're the monkey.
Yeah. Or the short and the tall guy, when indeed Dean and I are both 6 feet tall. But I worked in a crouch because I knew what the comic had to be against the straight man. And we always looked like that. And people would see us in person or at the Copa, and they were amazed that we were the same height. But that was just a house number, the monkey and the organ grinder. Because when I was writing and thinking about what we had to do, I had to diminish Jerry and put Dean there. And in everything that we did, we kept that. As a matter of fact, there was one point when I told Dean it would really be great if we put a 1/4 of an inch on his heels when we played the Copa, and that my crouch would work better. We did it. It worked. And what we did was we used a minimal frame of material, and what we did was just show an audience how much 2 guys could care about one another while they were having so much fun. That was the key.
What's the matter?
A point of order.
Yes.
Fix it!
What?
Fix the pipe!
Hold it for me, Mr. Martin, and I'll fix it. Come up. Hold it. Hold. Thank you very much.
You're laughing. You forgot to take your watch off.
The vast majority was ad-lib. Within a structure worked out, but a lot of room to maneuver?
I would say there was 38 minutes of structured songs, material, and we went from there and would go an hour and 10, an hour and 20, an hour and 30. But the structure was no more than 35, 36 minutes.
Come on, let me be with you, ballet.
I like him. Let's tell him about the plan. But maybe he's a stool pigeon.
Me, a stool pigeon? I don't even like peanuts.
Doesn't even like peanuts.
Wait a minute, I'll find out.
Go ahead.
Hey, you! You ever packed a G on your hip when you copped a heist?
Did I? Wow.
Did you ever take it on the lamb of the Shambles who had the croaker beside the tree?
In the early days, when you were working clubs and trying to drum up an audience, there's an interesting story. I guess maybe it happened in Miami. Of how
Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, okay. By the beach.
Right.
You take it.
I drown. Every afternoon at 2,
That
3
only works
o'clock.
once, you know.
No. If you move down the beach, you can drown 3-4 times a week. And I would drown, and he would be pumping, and I would have water, holding water in my mouth. And he would be giving me artificial respiration. I would turn from on my stomach. First show's at 8 o'clock. We're at the 500 Club. Bang, we're out of there.
So the crowd gathers to see the drowning man, and now all of them show up for the show.
Well, most. Before you knew it, this was like the first week. Before you knew it, there were... Well, the first night we played to 6 people in a room that sat 250. By the 3rd or 4th night, word to mouth was that these 2 guys do 3 hours at midnight. Well, you couldn't get near the club. The crowds were just constantly around the block. And it came from our nonsense. Then they finally put our name up on the tail of the plane, Martin and Lewis at the 500 Club, and I'd run down the beach yelling at the pilot, "Folks, see, that's it." I mean, it was nothing for me to run 1.5 miles for as far as the plane went. I was the best public relations. Dean finally sat at the bench and said, "Come back, I'll meet you here. You run." I ran.
The trademark of Martin and Lewis, in addition to the timing and the relationship between the suave guy and the comedic guy, was that energy, that constant energy that bordered on chaos, at least from the audience's perspective.
Yeah.
You guys were in control of it, but it bordered on chaos. You come out on a 1952 telethon, not your telethon, but Hope and Crosby are doing a thing to raise money for the U.S. Olympic team. And the stuff really hits the fan, right?
Well, Bing was frightened. He wasn't afraid of Dean. Dean ran out between Bob and Bing, and Bob said, "Where's the monkey?" or whatever he called me, and I came from another side of the stage. It spooked Bing. Bing thought I would fool with his tooth. And I never spoke to Crosby after that. That he didn't know me well enough to know I would never do such a thing. I was so offended by it that was 52. In the next 8 years, I never talked to Crosby. Our dressing rooms were right adjacent to one another at Paramount.
Did you reconcile eventually?
Never. Never. He never took the time to find out what I was, that I would never do such a thing. I didn't have the time. There's just too many wonderful people in the world to spend time with. I didn't need that.
How good a straight man was Martin?
The best in the world. Best that ever lived. Oh, Jesus. I mean, he had, just as a comic is born funny, and you just don't learn that, men like Dean are born with a sense of timing and a sense of pace. He could split an atom with the turn that he'd make at the time that he'd make it. It was infinite. And he didn't have to work at it. All he had to do was show up. I used to tell everybody, if he shows up, we're a hit. And we were. And he showed up.
Was there genuine affection between the two of you, or just a good partnership?
No. I loved him as I love him now. And he loved me the same way, but as a kid brother, and he was my hero. And that came across. People would come from the Copa and sit in Lindy's and say, "I saw Martin and Lewis tonight," and someone would say, "What did they do?" Well, you know, one sings and the other jumps around. They never could ever say what we did. Because you were talking about aesthetics and very, very, very deep emotional ties that we projected to an audience. People were watching two people in love have a wonderful time.
Let's test your reflexes, right?
Reflex, yeah, that's important, ain't it?
Oh, sure, now. We've got to see if you're all right.
How's that feel? I don't mind it at all. I like it.
That doesn't bother you?
No, not at all.
Nothing?
No, I don't mind.
Well,
change.
So you go through all this stuff together, working the clubs. You're on the first Ed Sullivan show. You have your own Martin and Lewis show that is phenomenally successful. I remember it vaguely as a little kid in those days, but a lot of our audience probably couldn't appreciate what the Martin and Lewis frenzy was. In pictures, in the big clubs in Vegas, where the biggest stars in show business would clamor to just be in the audience. That's how hot it was. And then after almost exactly 10 years to the day, from the forming of the partnership in 1956, it's dissolved.
July 25th.
And as you write about it in your autobiography, you tried to end it with an expression of emotion. And he was kind of cold.
He was really shook, but Dean's upbringing was such that he was able to, he had a wonderful facade. He was able to cover that. When he and I were alone, totally alone, he would drop the facade and you would see the depth and the sensitivity and all of the things that made him a powerful man. But he was taught that that is not the way to go. So the facade he had built up is usually what people see with Dean. But he was shattered at the end of it, and so was I. But it had to be, because we knew, both of us knew, that it was time. I remember using a very important sports example to Dean when I said to him, there was nothing more painful for me, loving sports as much as I do, than watching Joe Louis go through the ropes that last fight.
Marciano.
If he would have just quit one fight sooner so that he could have gone out that great champion, to watch him go through the ropes, and I said to Dean, let's not let them see us go through the ropes. Let's walk away with the belt.
So it was just a sense that the thing had peaked, and now was the time. It wasn't an incident. It wasn't...
No, there were a variety of incidents. We were starting to get frustrated. There were things he wanted to do on his own. There were things I wanted to do on my own. Then there were those third outside factions that were getting between us, and they were pouring salt on the wounds, and some of the things that we said and we did, which came from pain, not from anger. We knew it was time. And we sat down like in March of that year and said, let's not get knocked through the ropes. So we put an end to it with the last commitment we had, which would be the Copa New York, closing the 25th of July, 1956.
For 20 years, until Sinatra brings him out on one of the telethons, for 20 years, this is perceived as a feud. Perceived by the public as not just they don't work together anymore, they don't talk to each other, there's no contact.
We didn't talk to each other, not because of any other reason than Dean is a recluse. His lifestyle is such that he really enjoys it that way. And I would never impose upon him by bothering that reclusivity, if there's such a word. And if I was in trouble, he'd have been the first one there, and vice versa.
Even if that's true, in an extreme case, if either one of you were in big trouble, to go 20 years, not communicate, I assume no season's greetings at Christmas or Hanukkah, no nothing.
We didn't do that when we were partners.
Never once a phone call, nothing.
Not in 20 years, no.
There had to be ill feelings then.
Well, you have, I guess it's like a divorce. It's, you know, I don't believe the man and woman that were married that get divorced to say, but we're now wonderful friends. Yeah, here, I'll give you wonderful friends. There is no such thing as wonderful friends. Why don't you stop playing with yourself?
That? See, these guys tend to fall asleep on this show.
A man and woman.
You cut it here, all of a sudden you got an action shot.
Want it again? Here. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work. But with age, and again with wisdom, you start to really count your chips. And what happened in '76, when Frank surprised me on the telethon, the look in Dean's eyes told me the whole story. And what he saw in my face after we talked later, he saw the whole story. The joy that we had of seeing one another there. We let 120 million people watch that.
I have a friend who loves what you do every year and who just wanted to come out and say, would you send my friend out, please? Where is he? Would you send him out here? Come here.
I was the only one that didn't know. If you look at the video and you stop frame, just look at my face. It's right in the eyes. And then we talked after that. And I've seen him a number of times after that. Then when Dino was in the horrible accident,
His son.
it was the apple of his eye, we talked at length. We probably talked more after the funeral than we did in the 10 years, if you can imagine that long a discussion. It was sensitive. It was a man that lost something vital in his life, and he wasn't about to talk to anyone about it, but he did talk to me about it. And it was very meaningful to both of us, and that was good. It was good.
Good to hear that, because there was a story that even after the emotional reunion on the telethon in '76, that you were moved enough to send him a handwritten note, had it hand-delivered to be sure to get to him.
Right.
No response.
That's Dean. That's okay.
You sent him some sort of coin as a
He
memento.
got it.
No response.
That's Dean. That's okay. I love him unconditionally. He's not rude, and he just doesn't happen to believe in the social graces. But if you know that, when you send it, you don't expect anything to happen. He got my letter. He got the gift. That's fine. But you have to know somebody. Some people, all of a sudden, turn off all of their love for what? Because they didn't take the time to recognize, here is somebody that's entitled to live their life the way they choose to live it. And you must respect that. And I do. If I called him tonight, hi, Pally, it's like we talked yesterday. That's Dean.
Some people thought that in The Nutty Professor, when you drink that elixir and you turn into the singer, Buddy Love, that Buddy Love was kind of a swipe at Dean.
No.
You always said no, but it was easy for people to draw that conclusion. This is during the separation and everything.
Impossible. Couldn't be. This character was so ugly and was so full of venom, and I wrote this character. And I'll tell you where I got him from. I got him from the anti-Semite. I got him from the racist. I got him from the people on a bus that won't get up for a lady. I got him from a cheat. I got him from a guy that don't pay his debts. I got him from everything that's ugly. I got him from a guy that says the only reason I told my kid he was adopted was to keep him on his toes. I took every ugly aspect of everything I can remember seeing and wrote him into this one character. That was what I wrote. Because he happened to look like... I was shocked when some of the kids loved the character. We'd get mail for Buddy Love that they loved the character. I was in shock. I shot everything of the professor first and placed everything with Buddy Love at the end of the production. When I ran out of everything to shoot, I finally got into that makeup and played that character, that ugly son of a bitch. No, that couldn't be anywhere near the guy that I loved.
What'll it be?
Aw, that's no way to talk. What'll it be? That's no way to treat a customer. Come here, try it like this. Pay attention, you'll feel better and the customers will be happier. Try this. What'll it be? Try that. Come on, we haven't got all night. Try it.
What'll it be?
Good, that was wonderful. Did anyone ever tell you you couldn't sing? Nice. Make me an Alaskan polar bear heater on a double. Come on, come on.
Do you buy into the general notion that the funniest people have some deep and lasting pain?
Sure.
That all comedy comes from pain?
You bet. Absolutely.
What is it for you, then?
Well, I think that we all begin, those of us who had to borrow white ducks to graduate in, because that was the nature of a poor family. If you don't turn that into laughter, you could die standing on those steps at PS 156 and taking your graduation picture. When there's a hole in the back of the heel of your sock and you're wearing your cousin's white ducks, if you don't turn that into humor, pal, you'll be the only one in the picture that's leaning over. So you turn it into humor. You don't let the guy take the picture right now. You make one crazy sound so that everyone breaks up. And when kids laugh and they bend over or they put their hands on their mouth, they won't shoot the picture. And you get through it that way.
Now, eventually, does that become craft, and you can still do it even after the pain is gone? Or are you always trying to soothe that pain? Maybe you push it further and further away, but it's always there, even in your 60s.
I think,
even with the wife and the daughter and all the success and the happiness.
Yeah, the pain almost has to be there, I think. I think you have to almost nurture it to stay there. Keep it at a minimum if you can. It's like I once was recommended, right after Dina and I split, I was recommended to see a very, very good analyst in Beverly Hills to help me work my way through this, to understand this. And I went to see him, and he said, you know, of course, that you're going to heal yourself. That's what psychiatry is. I'm just going to be a monitor. And I felt terribly uncomfortable. And I said, I don't know that I need any healing, doctor, and I don't know that I really need someone to tell me how to work through this, but I do know something that I realized sitting here. I have a feeling if you help me find out that I don't have any pain, I ain't never going to be funny again. I can't take that chance. Please send the bill to my office. Thank you, and I left. He called me at my office the following day and said, who said you didn't heal yourself?
And that was it? No further trips to the therapist ever?
That was it. And he sent the check that I paid him to muscular dystrophy.
And they will come.
This has been great.
Thank you.
You haven't erupted even once. You have only 10 seconds to do it.
No. There's no point in erupting. I had a wonderful time just sitting here in this beautiful set.
I mean erupt comedically.
I know that.
You know, say see you later in a way that...
I hope you all tune in to Bob Costas on Later every night this week. You know the guests he has: Ruby Keeler, Helen O'Connell, Phyllis Calvert, Bert Stern, Herman Gekic, Liffey Bush, Mool Duman, and Helen Ake.
It's a hell of a week.
It's
see
a
you
hell
later.
of a promo.